We check in to see how we're doing at the Convention of States Article 5 movement, which is being led by a wonderful organization that's run by Mark Meckler, who's our friend. Mark, how are you?
Mark, I'm always better when I'm on the air with you, buddy. It's good to hear your voice.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Tell us what's going on in Iowa.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Iowa has a 2-year session. We passed the House last year. The House has actually done it 2 years in a row. And we are on the verge of passing in the Senate. That would make Iowa the 13th state. Really exciting to get to 13 states. But there is some opposition rising up in Iowa right now.
And who might that be?
It's really interesting. It's one of these groups that calls itself conservative. They're called the Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition. Unbelievably.
Now let's just stop there. Look how they steal the language. The Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition that's opposed to the Constitution.
Yeah, unbelievably, Mark. These guys are registered lobbyists. I'm a registered lobbyist, nothing wrong with that, but they are lobbying against Convention of States, and their fellow lobbyists registered against us, Common Cause, the ACLU, the AFL-CIO, basically every leftist organization now aligned side by side with the Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition.
Well, who's behind the Faith and Freedom Coalition?
Again, these are people that claim to be good conservatives. They do fight on the conservative side on other issues, but in this case, they've lost their way. They're sending out these horrible, dishonest emails, slandering the movement, repeating the lies of the left. It's really frustrating to watch.
And the lies are what? That we'll lose our Constitution?
The lies are the same leftist slander that's been issued since the 1970s. Number one, that the 1787 convention was a runaway, so we're going to have a runaway convention. That's the number one lie that they're peddling.
Now let's start right there. You and I know that's not even possible. Forget about the history lesson, because they're not interested in the history lesson. That's not even possible. The amendment process, at the end of the process, still requires 38 states to ratify. So how is it possible to have a quote-unquote runaway convention?
It's not, Mark. You're right. It's mathematically impossible. When I talk to these people and we try to have a logical argument with us, they literally just stare at you. When faced with logic, they just stop or they yell or they do what they're doing, which is they slander the 3 million activists. They slander people like you and me saying that we are battling against the Constitution.
Well, we reference Article 5. We're talking about Article 5 of the Constitution, correct?
Yeah, we are, Mark, and it's the weirdest thing because they claim to love the Constitution, apparently everything except Article 5.
And Article 5 simply provides two ways of amending the Constitution. The first, we're aware of, 2/3 of both houses of Congress propose an amendment to the states, and the states, either through convention or the legislatures, you need 38 states or 3/4 to ratify. Here, the states are proposing amendments to the states, and you still need the same 38 to ratify. To me, this is quintessential federalism. Why wouldn't we embrace it?
It's actually the ultimate act of federalism. It's the states acting to rein in the federal government. One of the things these folks will propose is they say, well, we should just let Congress do it, as if somehow, someday, Congress is going to do something they've never done, which is rein in their own power. It's just absurd.
And in fact, didn't George Mason, who proposed this 2 days before the end of the Constitutional Convention, didn't he say that he was proposing this and wasn't it ratified, adopted by the convention and ratified by the states because he was concerned Congress would become oppressive? Yeah,
he specifically asked the question, were the delegates so naive they believed that a federal government that became a tyranny would propose amendments to restrain its own tyranny? Madison's notes actually reflect these words. They say nin com. In other words, there was no debate about it, no comment. It was so obvious to the men in attendance that we were going to need the states to step up against the federal government that they unanimously included this in their draft of the Constitution.
To me, Mark Meckler, this is where the rubber hits the road. Either you're serious about the 10th Amendment, federalism, Article 5, or you never were. That is, you always expected the federal government to provide answers, and yet you and I both know that at the time of the Constitution, its adoption, its ratification, they viewed things the other way around, that the states needed to have power to rein in the federal government.
Yeah, they put this power in the states, and I got to say, Mark, kudos to where they belong. We've got some great leaders in the Iowa Senate, Whitver and Schneider and Schultz and Smith. These guys are stepping up and providing the necessary leadership. They're pushing back against groups like Iowa Faith and Freedom. So all is not lost. There are great statesmen and women out there in these state legislatures.
Well, who is blocking us in particular?
Well, in particular, right now, it looks like it's going to go. My fear is just these guys are sending so many emails, and they're just trying to churn it up nationwide and cause problems. I'm worried that people are going to lose faith. But right now, I think things look pretty good in Iowa, and I hope to report to you by the end of the week that we've passed in Iowa.
So you think it's going to occur this week?
You know, I hate to jinx it by saying yeah, but I think we're right there on the verge, and I think it could happen this week, yes.
So anybody who hears me in Iowa, or who's from Iowa and on a trip but going back to Iowa, now's the time to contact your state senator, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, and this is what makes the difference. Your state senator, in other words, if you're a constituent, you want to call them up, you want to email them, you want to let them know, stand strong, do what your people want you to do. The polling shows us, Mark, that 3/4 of the people in Iowa want these folks to pass Convention of States. Let's get them to be magic number 13. There were 13 original colonies. This will be the 13th state to join the call for a Convention of States.
So we have 12 states out of 50. By my calculation, that's more than 20% of the states.
It's incredible. I mean, we're already over a third of the way to 34. I didn't expect it to happen this fast. It's pretty exciting to see what's happening. I've been in 12 states so far this year. We've had a couple of setbacks. But here's the interesting thing, Mark. Every place we have a setback where we actually lose a vote, we get the majority of Republicans vote with us, and then just a few Republicans vote in bloc with the Democrats to stop us. It's a real interesting pattern.
And this has happened most recently in which states?
A couple of states where we had frustrating setbacks. The most recent was Kansas, and right before that was South Dakota. We had the same thing in Idaho. Always the same pattern. The vast majority of Republicans voting in favor. A few Republicans vote in bloc with the leftist Democrats to stop us from using the Constitution to save the Republic.
And they claim that they stand for the Constitution when in fact they stand with progressives who abuse the Constitution and pretend they're upholding the Constitution.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. So groups like Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition, they claim that we're with George Soros, yet 230 leftist organizations led by Soros and Common Cause and Center on Budget and Policy Priority, MoveOn.org, all these groups issued a press release against Convention of States. You show that to groups like Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition, they basically just stare at you blankly. It's unbelievable that they could stand with these groups and still claim to be conservative.
Well, I'm a well-known cohort of George Soros's, as are you, as are the people on your staff, which includes who?
Well, the endorsers of the project, obviously you wrote in the Liberty Amendments, got the movement rolling, but Sean Hannity's in favor. Obviously, Mike Farris is one of the co-founders of Fighter for Religious Liberty since way back when. Senator Tom Coburn works for us. Jim DeMint works for us. Hardly cohorts of George Soros. These are freedom fighters from way back.
And DeMint has made it his mission, and Coburn has made it his mission. In fact, having spoken to Coburn, he said, look, I had to get out of the Senate. We weren't doing anything, and I had to get involved in this movement to try and get this government under control.
Yeah, and DeMint says the same thing. He was in the Senate. He left there. He went to Heritage. He realized, look, that's not accomplishing anything. He wanted to be in the fight, and that's why he serves as a senior advisor to the Convention of States project.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mark Meckler, if people want to help, if they want to support the cause, where do they go?
Go to conventionofstates.com because, Mark, you and I can talk about it, but it's going to take regular patriots, millions of them across the country, to be involved. They can go to conventionofstates.com and get involved.
All right, keep up the fight. We're rooting for you. Thanks
God
so much.
bless you, brother. Thanks a lot.
You too. Be well. Well, there you have it. Isn't it always the way? The other side is, ideologically, they goose step in one direction, they get all the funding, they do their thing. Our side, we are attacked by this fifth column. And it happens all the time. All right, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The question facing us and facing our fellow countrymen is a two-word question. Very simply, who decides? The American founders had a simple answer. We, the people, decide.